The Kent School District Board meetings are held in public on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month at 7 p.m. at the Administration Center in accordance to the Washington State Open Public Meetings Act. Regular meetings include presentations and reports dealing with district operations, as well as time set aside for public comment. Now, here are your Kent School District Board of Directors. Welcome to tonight's board meeting.
Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I have asked Mr. Don Dinsmore to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Don. Welcome to everyone. This is a meeting of the board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. We allow opportunity for public comments later in the agenda. If you would like to address the board, please fill out the blue card. It's in the back. On the table, it's a white card with a blue border, and bring it up to the dais. If you wish to speak to an agenda item, please indicate on the card, and your name will be called at that portion of the agenda. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Dr. Watts, are there any changes to the agenda?
Evening, President Venkadas, law members of the board, Ms. Halley. There are no changes to the agenda this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this evening we'll start out with several proclamations. And we will start out first with the National School Lunch Week, celebrating October 9th through the 13th.
Okay, thank you. National School Lunch Week. Whereas having access to and eating a nutritious lunch is an important part of students' educational day and positively impacts their ability to learn, and whereas the Kent School District is an active participant in the National School Lunch Program, which is dedicated to the health and well-being of our nation's children with the goal to provide nutritional, attractive, and affordable lunches to all students, and whereas the district staff of the Food and Nutritious Service Department work together to provide a quality lunch that offers healthy choices that include local and regional food products identified through the expanding Farm to School program, promotes nutrition education through menu choices, product merchandising, and working with community partners, and actively supports the goals of the academic community. And whereas this year's theme, School Lunch Recipes for Success, reminds students, parents, and school staff that healthy school lunch helps students power through the day. And whereas research shows that children who participate in the school lunch program perform better in the classroom, therefore be it resolved that the Kent School District Board of Directors supports the work of the Food and Nutrition Services staff and proudly proclaims the week of October 9th through the 13th, 2017, National School Lunch Week in the Kent School District. So I believe this time we'd like all those from our nutrition services to stand, and I think
Mr. Ogg, Andy Dinsmore,
Absolutely.
and other nutrition services staff will be accepting the proclamation.
What an honor to receive this proclamation, and I am honored to receive this. And every Friday I wear this shirt. If you can see it, healthy lunch league. And on the sleeve it says here, fighting hunger one spoonful at a time. And I'd like to bring up, and one person can't do this alone. It takes a team. And so, thank you, board, and Dr. Watts. Thank you.
Okay. I will read the National School Bus Safety Week proclamation. Whereas National School Bus Safety Week is an active and evolving public education program and is an excellent way for parents, students, teachers, motorists, school bus operators, school administrators, and community members to join together to address the importance of school bus safety. And whereas Kent School District buses meet or exceed federal and state regulations and consistently receive a 100% passing score in the annual inspection by the State Patrol, and whereas many students begin and end their day with a school bus ride, approximately 10,000 students are transported daily on 130 routes and 150 school buses traveling approximately 1,567,938 miles each year. And whereas the key to school bus safety lies in qualified, competent, and capable school bus drivers, mechanics, and support staff, and whereas the board recognizes the high caliber of its transportation team and commends the transportation services staff for the exemplary job of safely transporting students. And now, therefore, be it resolved, the Kent School District Board of Directors emphasizes the importance of student safety and proclaims the week of October 16th to the 20th National School Bus Safety Week in the Kent School District. All right, and I think Justin Dennison and other transportation staff are here to accept it.
Thank you, President Vengadasalam, directors of the board, Dr. Watts. On behalf of our 175 bus drivers, mechanics, and administrative personnel, thank you for recognizing National School Bus Safety Week. Safely operating a school bus in our community is our top priority, and bus drivers teach students the importance of safety when riding the bus, entering and exiting the bus, and most importantly, when they're crossing in front of the bus. Thank you.
And thank you.
We have 5 proclamations tonight, so we always take pictures afterwards, so don't anybody leave until we get pictures. The next one that we have is the National Principals Month. Whereas the National Association of Secondary School Principals and the National Association of Elementary School Principals have declared the month of October 2017 as National Principals Month. Whereas principals are educational visionaries, instructional and assessment leaders, disciplinarians, community builders, budget analysts, facilities managers, and administrators of legal and contractual obligations. Whereas principals work collaboratively with teachers and parents to develop and implement a clear mission, high curriculum standards, and performance goals. Whereas principals create school environments that facilitate great teaching and learning and continuous school improvement. Whereas the vision, action, and dedication of principals provide the mobilizing force behind any school reform effort. Whereas the celebration of National Principals Month honors elementary school, middle school, and high school principals in ensuring that every child has access to a high-quality education. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Kent School District proclaim the month of October as National Principals Month. And I know we've got some principals out there, so if you would stand and come on up and be honored, we would love to have you.
Principal Scott Abernathy.
And tell everyone why you're here. Because you are the Pause now.
I have the privilege of serving our district and my colleagues as the president of the Kent Principal Association. And so I do want to thank our board of directors for all of your support, Dr. Watts for your support, and for all of you for your support. Our schools, our students, the staff that we work with make all the difference. And it's really an honor that I have such a dedicated and professional group of building administrators to work with. I've had the honor of working in Kent for quite a few years, and we don't count them anymore. And it truly is, I'm saying from the depth of my heart, a privilege to work here and to represent our building administrators. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So our next proclamation is National Physical Therapy Month. Whereas the Kent School District is committed to supporting students with special needs and providing every student with equal access to education regardless of physical needs. Whereas the American Physical Therapy Association recognizes how physical therapists and their assistants improve people's lives by restoring and improving their abilities of movement. And whereas the Kent School District encourages staff, students, community members to help increase awareness of the benefits of physical therapy during the month of October, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Kent School District proclaims the month of October as National Physical Therapy Month in the Kent School District and calls upon all citizens and civic organizations to join in the national effort to raise awareness of physical therapy and how therapists and their assistants improve students' access to education.
John said it.
Jan, you can take separate here today.
Okay, but I'm not going to speak. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Jan will take the award. I'll say a few words. So, President Venkatasalam, board members, Dr. Watts, Ms. Howley. So, thank you very much for this proclamation tonight. The number of physical therapists in our district is small, but their impact is significant. As you know, inclusive education is more than just a practice, it's a belief system. And your leadership in setting that culture and that tone within our district is very much recognized and appreciated. So thank you.
The last proclamation, I always love reading this one because I get a little piece of history in it. So listen up for the piece of history. This is the Filipino American History Month. Whereas Filipino Americans are one of the largest Asian American and Pacific Islander ethnic populations in Washington state and the fourth largest in the United States. And whereas Filipino Americans contribute to the enrichment and quality of life in our state and nation. And whereas the earliest documented Filipino presence in the continental United States was October 18th, 1587, when the first Luzones Indios arrived in Morro Bay, California. And whereas Filipino American History Month provides an opportunity to promote the student of Filipino American history and culture, that didn't make sense, to promote the student of Filipino American history and culture, recognize the richness of Filipino American ethnicity, and honor the contributions of Filipino Americans, especially their service with distinction in the United States military. And whereas when schools, parents, and communities work together as partners, our children benefit. And whereas Washington's educational leaders are developing programs and resources to support stronger partnerships between families, schools, and communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Kent School District joins Washington State Governor Jay Inslee in proclaiming the month of October as Filipino American History Month. And Jewel, I think are you accepting this? Yes. Yeah, sure. we have in the past had a wonderful member of our Filipino American community here, but he's not here tonight. I hope everything's okay with him. So thank you for accepting this.
Right, I am
in their
accepting
name.
this on their behalf.
Yes.
And so, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for the opportunity, I would like to, before we do that, add that Dr. Burchard is out today. She's leaving on a plane to visit her daughter, so she's asked to be excused. Thank you.
We can go in the same order as the proclamation you read. So
School lunch week.
Okay.
So there they are. They're ready to go.
Ready.
and my expenses. You can't be like that. Thank you very much. All right.
Here we go.
On the side. You and John on the side. There we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
All right.
That's before my eyes.
We are on to our presentations. First up, 3.01 is our summer programs update, and we will call Dr. Millicent Borchardt, School Improvement Officer, to present and answer any questions from the board.
President Van members of the board, Dr. Watts, Ms. Howley, I wanted just a point of privilege, personal privilege, before I introduce Dr. Borchardt and who will be presenting tonight, is to thank you for the opportunity to share our summer program. We look forward to the future sharing even more about the learning of our students here in the Kent School District. But I wanted to share that those of us who have had the opportunity to coordinate summer programs know the work it takes to do that, all the coordination, presentation. I wanted just to thank Dr. Borchardt for the work that she did this year. So I look forward to hearing the summary today, but wanted just to do that and acknowledge her tonight. So thank you, Dr. Borchardt.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Vengadazzalam, members of the board, Dr. Watts, Karen Howley. Thank you for this opportunity to present on the summer programs. So we will begin with talking about our alignment to the blueprint, which is preparing all students to be college and career ready by raising the academic and social and emotional learning bar and closing the pre-K 16 gaps for students' achievement and college completion. This year, we focused on district-wide summer programs and site-based summer programs at the elementary level. At the elementary level, we had the district-wide program where all 28 schools had an opportunity to invite students to the summer school program based on their iReady winter scores. And so when we took a look at the iReady winter scores, we sent out approximately 500 letters to students. And then once their Smarter Balance scores came back, there were some who did well enough so that they didn't have to attend the summer school program. We also had site-based summer school programs, and you can see this year we had 15 summer school programs at the various schools. The asterisk indicates that we had Century 21 programming going on at Daniel, Kent Elementary, and Scenic Hill. Our Century 21 program this summer focused on field trips to the Seattle Aquarium, the Shadow Lake Nature Preserve, and the Museum of Flight. There were also weekly visits to the library. And this is going to be the last year of our Century 21 program because our grant has ended. And if we would like to apply, we just have to wait because this is one of the programs that was cut as a result of the president's proposed budget. Secondary summer learning took place at the various middle schools, Cedar Heights, Mill Creek, Meeker, Northwood, and then we had Kent Meridian also offer summer programming as well. We had CTE, and students who participated in CTE were extremely excited. We also had parents to join, and they were filled with amazement in terms of what their students can do in this space. At Mill Creek, we had students participate in iFly, Water Bottle Rockets, Museum of Flight, and Wellness. And part of this program was helping students to develop the self-confidence that they need to continue in middle school and high school. We had high school credit recovery. In the past, we've had 28 days of high school credit recovery. This year, we had 20 days of instruction, and we had several students to complete several classes, as many as 6 courses this year. So imagine that student recovering an entire year in summer school. We also had the summer breakfast and lunch program. This year, we served almost double the amount of breakfast, and lunch we served a little less than we served last year, 42,000. And these are the different locations that we served lunch in. I also wanted to share that at Meadow Ridge, we also had an opportunity to partner with Amazon, and approximately 95 students had an opportunity to create robots, go to the fulfillment center, and create projects for themselves. This year, a little different, we also had Camp Invention, and the students who participated in the district-wide program, they had 20 intensive days of writing, learning reading skills and strategies, and at the very end, there was a day of display for their parents to come in, and they had an opportunity to share everything that they did during summer school. And students said that we came to summer school for the Camp Invention part, but there was a lot of creative learning in that space. And so they were operating at the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy in terms of creating things. Any questions?
I don't think I have any questions. I have a couple comments. I love some of the the iFly and some things. Those must have been just wonderful for those kids to experience that, and the robotics too. And I know someone who, I didn't know she was going to go to summer school, but her principal told me that before I had even seen her, that she had done really well in summer school. And when I saw her, she said, you know, I used to didn't like reading, but I really like reading now. And she apparently has really done some progressing in reading. So that really pleased me an awful lot. So
Great.
definitely worth it.
Yes.
So I do have a couple of quick questions. So on the elementary school, and can you give me just a little bit more about like how long were kids at school? What types of activities did they do while they were there?
So they were there from, for 20 days as well. They were there from the morning from 9 until 2:30. They had, in the morning time, there was reading and writing, and the reading and writing was based on the information that we gathered from the Smarter Balance assessment. So we took a look at the trend data to tell us what type of reading skills students needed, and then lesson plans were written and provided for the teachers. Then there was lunch, and after lunch, the students then participated in Camp Invention. So that went from 1 to 2:30, and students really didn't want to go home. They were glued to, and each and every day, they were challenged with making something. So they were there from 9 to 2:30 for 20 days.
Excellent, thank you. And then do we have any idea why our breakfast doubled? I think that's great, but just wondering, that's a large increase. So was it outreach on our part, or?
I think it's a combination of things, outreach on our part, and then with the district-wide program, we had more students participating in summer school.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I just wanted to say it's great, the diversity of programs every year that you coordinate. Thank you for doing that. I wanted to ask about, I guess, the post-survey after the program. Are we checking to see if our kids are continuing their interest, like in robotics or iFly, which I don't know if you can continue that in high school, but how do we assess that?
So the assessment piece came with seeing if at the elementary, how much academic growth our students either maintained or continued. And on average, some students scored 70 points higher when they took the iReady test this semester. And then as far as the CTE and students who are in high school, the students are more engaged in terms of having the awareness of what CTE offers.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Okay, any other questions?
That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Borsche.
Thank you.
Okay, 3.02, Recruiting and Hiring Report. I'd like to call on Mariah Martin, Chief Human Resources Officer, Matt Gerard, HR Strand Director, and Scott Nicholson, HR Operations Director, to present and answer any questions.
Great. Good evening, President Vengadassalam, board members, Dr. Watts, Ms. Halley. We're really excited tonight to be able to share with you our recruitment report and the outcomes of that recruitment in our hiring. And it's an interesting change that we've had in HR. It's exciting. We have moved into an HR operations side and HR strand directors. And so with that, Matt Gerard, who was formerly our Director of Recruitment and Onboarding, has moved into an HR strand director. He is going to speak about our recruitment efforts. He knows those intimately as he did this work. And then that work is transitioning to Scott Nicholson in HR operations. And so he is going to take the piece on the hiring, but he'll also speak a little bit about recruitment as well, as he'll be taking some of that work on. But no worries, Matt will continue to do his great work in recruitment as an HR strand director along with our other HR strand directors. So I'm going to hand it over to them now.
Good evening, President Vengadassalam and members of the board, Dr. Watts, Ms. Halley. Just thank you for the opportunity to share, and I'm always very excited about what we do here and aligning it to the blueprint and goal 4 and recruit and hire and develop a premier workforce that is diverse as well. And so just thank you for that opportunity. We're going to start our presentation with Scott here.
Good evening. First slide you see here is our vacancy fill rate. At this point, it's 91%. We have some unfilled vacancies in some needed areas. Those would include special education, also other vacancies from first grade to fifth grade in places like Covington, Carriage Grass, Neely O'Brien, Grass Lake, Meridian Elementary, and Kent Elementary. So that kind of gives you the scope of the unfilled vacancies. We still are attempting to find candidates. Of course, this is October, so it is a little bit more difficult than it would be when in August in terms of what kind of pool we have. But it represents 8 total unfilled classrooms, representing 6.8 FTE.
So our recruitment trip, kind of at a glance here, shows a variety of places that we traveled and some of the data from that and what we spent. So 8 recruitment trips, 9 states covered, 14 universities, excuse me, 9 non-university career fairs. At a couple different states, they put on kind of an organized group of events, and so it's not a specific university. It might be 6 or 7 universities, some community colleges, and so we attend a handful of those as well. We try to really organize when we are on a trip, anything that's close within a couple hours, if we could drive to it and put it into the trip, make it most efficient. 19 traveling recruiters, so a handful. Not as many as we've had in the past. We've had to limit the amount of people traveling, but still very successful event and create efficiency and schedule more interviews down the road. So we might not have been able to interview as many right then on the spot, but then we set up Skype interviews that week following, so we're still engaging candidates that are around the country. This year we collected quite a few more resumes, a lot more candidates around the country, so 1,079 resumes collected that we track and we keep track of. I will follow up after year to see maybe someone was maybe a little bit interested but didn't quite want to make the move across the country, but we might follow up again later the following year to see if maybe, hey, what changed, how did your first year go, those kinds of things. 193 recruitment site interviews, so that's 193 interviews that we helped all of our building principals, kind of that first round interview, where we can get a good sense of who's the cream of the crop, the letters of intent, the ones that everyone's after, and so we gave out quite a few of those. 102 letters of intent, and again, there's quite a bit of competition for those folks. You know, they're getting 6, 7, 8 job offers that day, and so it's always a unique experience, and who's being real equitable in their how they're pitching our specific district. So $36,000, 634 was what we spent this year. A little bit of a reduction that we've had to use, but we were still very successful in using that very efficiently, getting a little bit more creative, using social media a little bit more, all those things that help with our recruitment efforts. Western Washington, as you can see, this is in addition to the data that was in the first slide, but I wanted to kind of separate Western Washington. I feel like moving forward, there's a lot of competition here in the Northwest, and not enough kids in these programs in the universities, and so that's one of the reasons we travel so significantly, and we do quite a great job of finding people across the country. I always like to point out one kind of highlight story, and Scott was a big part of this. Is when we were in University of Virginia, we provided a letter of intent to one of the individuals there who significantly stood out amongst the group, and then as the year went on, we noticed that he got he won an award at the teacher college there as the best student, and so we hired their best of their best, and so just really excited about that. And Scott had a lot to do with that, lots of follow-up that he did, and so that was just a big win for us. And we've kind of created this little pipeline from the University of Virginia. They have a very distinguished education program, and so we're really proud of creating those ties and those connections all the way across the country. So employment services and our recruitment efforts are going to continue to succeed with Scott's leadership. So I just wanted to point that out. But Washington, we just need to create lots more opportunity here, work with the universities. 289 resumes collected, 74 interviews, 26 letters of intent. Again, I talked about the competition. 8 of those people were hired from those letters of intent, and a total cost of $2,200. And that's, there's not as much travel cost. Those are a half hour down the road kind of thing. We can get more principals and other people involved in that. So, as a whole, recruited 9 states, Total letters of intent, 28 hires from all those letters of intent. So it's still about 30% return rate on the letters of intent. We still hire quite a few more from those states. We might not have been able to interview them right then and there to offer jobs, but we still continue to hire. That's why you see that 84% of new KEA hires are from 9 recruited states. Total KEA new hires is 127. Again, the cost, $36,000. Cost per hire, $288, which is a bargain. I'll pass it off to Scott.
I'm going to move it back just one. I wanted to speak a little bit about where we're going to go. So we talked about the fact that where we've been, and Matt has done a terrific job, and he's very kind to say that I can fill his shoes. I'm going to do my best. We have some challenges ahead of us. The ability to go to University of Virginia, to one of the top teaching colleges, may or may not be in the cards for us to be able to do that. I will say it was amazing to sit with that teacher, the one that ended up winning an award and is here, and ask him those questions that are in the interview, specifically about equity and diversity and what it means to him, and hear his response to that, as well as the use of technology in the classroom. So that was very moving and impactful on me. And so when we move forward, how do we find those opportunities? And so we know that while we steadily decreased our recruitment budget from $65,000 the year before this to $36,000 that you see here, next year it's dramatically less is what we have. And so we have to be creative into what we can do. We're trying to find alternatives to do this, using Title II grants to be able to help us with this. We'll find out more about whether we can do that. We're also being creative by reaching out and trying to create a grow your own partnership with universities, so our existing paraeducators can have opportunities to become teachers. Trying to find those opportunities is going to be really critical for us. As Matt mentioned, local and state recruiting, it's very competitive. Doesn't mean that we didn't find great candidates and that we won't continue to find great candidates. It's just it's a harder place for us to go. So that's kind of where we're going to go. A lot of that remains to be seen in the coming months. As you know, I'm going to be presenting on two additional slides that are a consequence of the hiring and the type of hiring that we did, but they're also important to understand. The first one is overload. What you're seeing here is a cost per year of overload expenses. Obviously, 17-18 is a projected cost. 15-16, 16-17 is the amount the district spent on overload. You can see that it has increased. As a result of tighter staffing levels, our overload projection are going up, which means there are more classrooms in overload, which means the payment or the compensation for overload, or the amount we're paying is increased. Split classes have also increased as a result of the tighter staffing. Now, although you could possibly have even more split classes than this, there are certain curricular reasons why you may not want to do it, or which may not be in the best interest. Kindergarten, first grade split, a fifth grade, sixth grade split, where sixth grade math and fifth grade math are very different, may not always be ideal or even possible. So while there is an increase in split classes, there are some decisions that go on about whether it's appropriate and when and why you should do it. So I wanted to kind of give that as context. You might have seen this last year during the board presentation of both the overload as well as split classes, but I wanted to kind of continue that as part of this presentation. So I will bring Mariah Martin up for closing remarks.
I thought it was, thank you both for the great work that you're doing and for the entire HR team who really takes this work with passion and drive and inspire me every day. One of the things I wanted to make sure that I mentioned to you is that we are committed to quality teaching and learning. That is what we are about. And so every single staffing decision, we're constantly keeping that at the forefront. And as we think about split classes, as we think about tightening allocations, we're always considering what is in the best needs of our students and our staff to be able to continue to do that work. And so I'd hate for any crisis, even a budget situation, to cause us not to look for opportunities. And I think there are opportunities that we can take a look at in a variety of ways with staffing to ensure that our teachers have all the resources they need and still ensure that we're using every single bit of funding and sources available. The example of Title II for recruitment, and where can we look for other ways to continuously find high-quality teachers. I do think it's important to also mention that people will ask, why are we recruiting when we are freezing hiring? We still continue to hire for high-need areas. ELL, SPED, dual language, OTs, PTs, ESAs will always be areas of need for us. So we need to continue to recruit and hire strong candidates and not move backwards in ensuring that those positions are filled. So with that, I'd like to give you an opportunity to ask any questions of myself, Scott, or Matt.
I'm always curious about dual language and picking up the next year's teachers for dual language. Did we do that successfully, and did we have to go to lots of different states, or how did that happen? Do you have that information? I don't want to.
Do you want to speak to the dual language?
Yeah, I believe we did fairly successfully. We have a couple people right on the cusp of graduating that we've gotten them qualified to teach a class, and I believe they're doing a great job at this point. And so, but every year when we add another grade level, that pipeline is very small. So we've really harnessed the use of the Grow Your Own product of partnering with universities, so those before they even think about where they want to work, they're going into these programs. We've kind of helped pave the path for them. So I think we're going to be able to be successful moving forward just with that Grow Your Own program and the partnerships with the universities and the grants that we're applying for.
And is that local universities?
Yep.
All right. That's great. And I don't have anything else right now, so if it pops up, I'll let you know.
So on the unfilled classrooms, so how are we, obviously we have long-term subs, or what do we have in those classrooms, and what are we doing to fill those?
So we have guest teachers currently filling those. We try to, when identifying these guest teachers in these long-term assignments, find ones either maybe it's perhaps a retired math teacher that's going to go ahead and fill in for in a math program. So we try to match it up by skill set as much as possible, especially in these long-term. Perhaps even I've had this where a teacher will actually have a relationship with the school. The retired teacher will come back to that school to help out while we're waiting, while we're actively recruiting.
I'd just like to add one thing to that, too. We're always continuing to recruit and fill those positions as well. We just had a young lady move across the country who was applying for a para job because she thought, oh, it's late September. There's probably not any teaching jobs available. And we hadn't actually posted any, but we noticed the Employment Services team noticed she had a social studies certificate, and I just had an opening open up at Cedar Heights for a social studies position. So it worked out real nice to get her into a teaching job. So we're always continuing, even if they're not applying for jobs, we're looking for every opportunity to find those great teachers. And she was a 5-year experienced teacher, so just a little nugget there.
Good catch, yeah.
Yeah, so on, especially the Washington colleges, I know when I'm looking at the dates here of, like obviously they hold their conferences or their events in February, but are we doing any reach out prior to that to any of those schools?
Oh, yes. Because it's so competitive, I like to try and build relationships prior to, whether it's visiting the universities prior to the event. Many of the universities have some of their own kind of meet and greets, and Mariah and myself have gone to a couple of different events at the colleges where we've done some informal interviewing, some interview prep, that kind of thing to build those relationships early on.
Are other districts there too at the same time?
Yes.
Oh, rats.
Yeah, I can tell you that there's other, I know I have a son, I guess he's still a student at Western right now in early childhood education. And I know I've heard him talk about other districts being there, but so I was just making sure we are there as well. So,
yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to ask about, I lost my train of thought. Oh, it'll come back. Can't remember now. Any other questions right now?
I don't think so. Oh, on positions that are unfilled, do we have guest teachers? Is there like a constant guest teacher, or is it like a revolving door of guest teachers? Or
It does depend on the assignment, and which assignment we're talking about. If it's a sped vacancy, it's most likely being filled by an agency hire. If it's, and again, it depends on the relationship with the guest teacher in the school. If it's a retiree who then absolutely loves the school and wants to stay there, we don't see much turnover. But we do have a couple spots where there is some turnover. One anecdotal story I'll tell you is somebody who thought, yeah, I can be in here for 3 months. I'm just kind of doing this while we're figuring out what my husband's going to do for the military deployment, and he got orders sooner rather than later. So that sort of ended that after we had spent some time trying to find somebody that could actually be there for several months while we actively recruited.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I do remember my question. It's about referrals, and have you ever thought about having a referral program, or is that even legal in education?
Sure. We've discussed it. I still use it regularly because I believe that our current workforce, I might be in employment services or the director of recruitment, but we're all recruiters every day, everywhere we walk, any interaction we have, whether it's ordering food or talking to somebody's son who's in a program. That's a constant all the time. So I'm constantly getting referrals. That's just a part of recruitment. As far as like some sort of bonus for that, that's always a discussion, but.
Yeah, I was just thinking if we've thought creatively about avoiding the trips and looking at other ways we could during these difficult times. And I also wondered how fewer trips have we taken compared to last year based on our budget.
I don't have that data in front of me right now. I'd be more than happy to provide it for Dr. Watts so he could give it to you. But I could definitely provide that.
I will say we dramatically decreased from the year before. I mean, our budget was 50% of what it was previously. I think that that's a fair question to wonder whether or not we could eliminate trips as a whole. Out-of-state recruitment does provide us with access to candidates and having that face-to-face interaction. Although social media is wonderful, to be able to sit down and talk with a candidate and really talk to them about what it's like to live in Washington and work in Washington and really connect with someone is valuable, right? So I don't know that we'll ever eliminate recruitment trips. I'd like to see recruitment efforts across the nation change, but we still have these fairs, and so we'll need to continue to think through the best way to do that with the fiscal resources that we have. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Next on the agenda is our budget update, and I will call Mr. Mike Newman, Mr. Ralph Fortunato, and Ms. Lisa Tyler, to provide a budget update.
President Van de Gosselum, members of the board, Dr. Watts and Ms. Halley, it's an honor for us to be here this evening and share a bit of good news tonight as we continue our pathway towards our budget recovery. Tonight, as we talk about this, there are a number of areas that we want to speak to, and our updates are going to be focused around looking at our projected and actual fund balance for 16-17. We haven't completed that work yet. We still have another few weeks as we work through that process, but we're pretty close, and that's where some of our good news comes in with some changes in some of our numbers. We're going to look at what our projected enrollment is for 2017-18 budget and see how those line up and how they compare to what we actually saw here on the October 2nd count day. We'll give you an update on where we are on the support from OSPI and Puget Sound ESD, and then we'll also cover in a bit more detail the budget recovery plan. And so Mr. Fortunato and Ms. Tyler are here tonight to provide additional information for us, and then at the end of this we'll answer questions that you have. And so I'll turn it over to Ralph to start with the budget pieces.
Thanks, Mike. Well, throughout the year, as you know, we monitor and project our our ending balances, our ending expenditures and revenues, and this is all based upon our actual results. In February, we instituted, as you remember, the 20% MSOC reduction. And then in April, we instituted additional spending controls. And then we used April data to produce a preliminary budget in June. At that time, we projected an ending fund balance to be $5.3 million to the positive in June. However, in our April to August, our projected plan, our projection with our spending controls and our MSOC reduction, we expected to spend $3.5 million less per month than our current spending at that time, which is just over $29 million a month. Do the math, and it's more than what we need it to be. So that's why we put the spending controls in there. However, our April to June actuals, we're actually spending $1.5 million more than what our plan was. So we were only saving about $2 million a month as opposed to $3.5 million a month. And in July, we were $4.4 million over the plan as opposed to the 3.5. And then in August, our expenditures in August were $1.4 million over the plan. That was our actually lowest month of the 5. And then the areas of expenditures, what led to the increases, we said this before, the effective education was up $3.65 million. Benefits, because you're spending more money on on more salaries, it's $4.5 million there. And contract services were up $7.3 million. Since Lisa will talk about Lisa will now talk about the enrollment projections. Right now, should I talk about the fund balance now or wait until the other slides? Wait till it gets. Okay.
Thank you, Ralph. Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Watts, Ms. Howley. So I would like to, at this point, provide just a quick review of our enrollment projections that we've already presented previously. So back on June 21st, if you recall, when we brought the first draft of our 2017-18 budget to you for review, we were using enrollment projections of the 27,198 budgeted FTE. And just remember, when our projections we use annual average FTE, since that is what we are ultimately funded off of. So that doesn't represent an enrollment figure as of a point in time, but we develop our projections with the annual average in mind. So back on June 21st, sorry, again, we were at 27,198, and that's total enrollment. And typically you see the breakout in these 3 categories. So you see the K-12 breakout, or the K-12 total, which was of that 27,000, basic ed K-12 was 26,010. And then typically we break out Running Start and iGrad, because it's kind of important to keep track of which programs our students are kind of living in, because if, for example, students that opt to take full-time Running Start courses, that ultimately reduces our basic ed funding allocation, which is not a bad thing at all. It's just important to see where our kids are living, basically. So our Running Start projections, again, back in June, were 865, and the iGrad enrollment we projected at 323 to get to the total of the 27,198. So here we are. By the time we finalized our budget and submitted our F-195 to the state, we revised that just slightly. We were down, due to a little bit better information. So the enrollment projections that we submitted on our final budget was 27,184, which shows our K-12 total at 25,996, and the Running Start and iGrad enrollments did not change. So those are still 865 and 323. So just to compare where our ultimate projections were versus where we were as of our October 1 enrollment count, which was 26,115. So we're actually up 119. So I think we feel pretty comfortable about where we're at with our projections. Now, if we look at a typical historical trend with enrollment, generally, again, if you look at, a multiple year window, from October to September, you would see the enrollments go up slightly and then kind of level off, but maybe see some increases until after the first of the year. And then typically, it almost always happens from February through the end of the year, we see the drop. So that's why, again, we look at the annual average when we consider our funding. Okay, so that's all I have on enrollment for now. Thank you.
So as we talk about the situation that we're in, where we ended the school year with a projected ending fund balance in that first budget of a negative $6.9 million, we enlisted the support of OSPI and the Puget Sound ESD, and they approved our budget with some following conditions that they had. And I wanted to highlight these of pieces that are here so that you're aware of what those numbers are and our progress that we're making towards that. So one of the conditions is that our F-196, which will be filed at the end of the month here, we had to have no less than $6.9 million of fund balance. Anything that's towards the positive side of that is going to be to our advantage. Our K-12 monthly enrollment reported on the P223 for October 2017 had to be no fewer than 25,840. And as Ms. Tyler said, we were at 26,115 for the October count. Our staff mix factor used for funding purposes, as reported on what's called the S275 report, had to be no less than 1.48756. So we created a chart to show you our progress. So the areas of focus, as you look on the left-hand side of the chart, are those three areas that I just spoke to. You'll see some dates that are there included in that the ending fund balance with the F-196 will be due on October 25th. We've already reported the P223 for October, and our S275 is due in November of this year. So our standard was met on the first row of not less than that, and you'll notice that our current projection shows that we have increased that to 5.6 million, or decreased it, depending on which way you're looking at the number. We went from 6.9 million now to a 5.6 million projection that Mr. Fortunato will explain to you in a few moments here. So we've preliminarily met the standard. Once we finalize that on October 25th and submit that, we will have officially met that standard. And so our number is based on our updated trial balance from King County yesterday. The October enrollment, as we mentioned earlier, 26,115 is our number, so we met that on October the 2nd. And then our staff mix factor is a projection right now at 1.49, so preliminarily we have met that standard, and that was estimated today by our team as we went through the data sets with those. So I want to share with you what our financial recovery model looks like. So our first phase was started last year in recognizing what our challenge is. And so we did the reductions of expenditures, as Mr. Fortunato said, that we did a mid-year reduction of our MSOC dollars, that we did cost control measures in spending and hiring in April, and that did help us, but didn't help us enough. And so phase two is this year, as we look through the budget verification pieces, that we review our processes internally and look at the external review currently with OSPI and the Puget Sound ESD. The phase three piece of this will be what we're working towards as we continue the work this year into next year with continued cost controls, and that we have process cohesion throughout the organization. And what that means is that that's the systems alignment that we've talked about before, both from a technology system and a human system, that we are working together to continue to make these improvements. Phase four then gets us to where we need to be. And where we need to be is a fund balance that meets the board's criteria of the 5% fund balance. And so our shared futures are really around that we ensure that we don't repeat these challenges ever again. And so that we always adhere to our board policy of maintaining that 5% fund balance. And it will continue with the regular communication that we're doing with our board and our internal audiences as well as our external audiences regarding our financial situation. So with this plan, as we look at it, I'm going to have Mr. Fortunato, well, let's see if I can get it to move to the next slide here. There we go. I'll have him share with you the details around how we make this work. And so each one of these, again, is laid out here in a summary manner for you to see the changes that have occurred in the first budget and the part that we're working on towards our revised budget for 2017-18, and then projecting out for 18-19 and 19-20. Mr. Fortunato.
So as you see on this chart here, the first part is the budget that we submitted, the F-195 budget that we submitted, and then the next line, the second line, is our revised budget as it stands right now. We're still working through that, and we'll probably, in December, we'll actually come to you with a budget revision on revenues and expenditures. But right now, we're going to start the year at minus 5.6 instead of the 6.9. Our revenues, projected revenues are 356.6, and you see the expenditures are 348, which will leave a fund balance of $2.5 million. Originally, if you remember, it was $1.2 million, so an increase of $1.3 million there. So that $2.5 million will be carried over. That'll start us in 18-19, and then you see the projected revenues there at 386.6. The expenditures of 378.2, or an increase of fund balance of 10.9. The goal was to increase fund balance by at least $8.4 million over the next 3 years, and that's what this plan will do. And then that 10.9, it comes at the beginning fund balance in 1920. You see the projected revenue minus the expenditures, so they have a fund balance of the $19.3 million there, which will come up to just under 5% fund balance in 1920. This chart here, you got a paper copy on
Review the difference between the 6.9.
And then this chart here will show you how it's broken down by revenue sources and by salaries, benefits, and all other, or the MSOCs for you for each of the years, and the percentage of growth in the out years. Where we came to how we improved our ending fund balance. There are some estimates that we made, and we really don't know these until when the books are just about closed. And I got it down here, the $1.3 million. Our property tax, what we call property tax accruals, so those are property taxes that we earn in August, what we get paid in September. We accrue those to the year in which we earned them, which is 16-17. We estimated last year it was $1 million. We estimated that same at $1 million. We actually came in at $1.6 million that we collected in, that we earned in August, but we collected. So there's an increase of $600,000. Our grant accruals, we do the same thing with grants. We earn the money in August, but we get it in September. But we can count that in 16-17. We accrue that to the year we earned it in. Last year it was $2.5 million, and that's the number we're going with. And this year it was $3 million, so there's an increase of $500,000. So now we're at $1.1 million. The other thing was prepay expenses. You order something, you pay for it, but you're not going to receive it until September or October or even November. Well, that doesn't go into that year. It goes. The expenditure really goes into the next year, but you paid for it now. So that's what a prepay is. Last year we had over $1 million in prepay expenses. This year with the spending controls, we estimated we would be right around $310,000 in prepays. We ended up at $60,000. So there's $250,000 there. You add all those up, it's $1,350,000. So that's where we got the increases to the ending fund balance. Why we came in at 5.6 instead of 6.9 minus. And as you see on the chart here, how this grows, this chart actually goes out to year 2022, and by that point, 2022, if we can keep the spending controls in place and the revenues we expect, and this, when you get past 2021 and 2022, you're in a crystal ball land, but it's estimates that we can, that's based on historical trends and the information that we know today. Our fund balance should be a healthy, 8% and 6.7% in 21 and 8% in 22.
So as we look at our progress to date for the 17-18 revised budget, I wanted to provide you an update of the work that's been done across the district as we work through these fiscal challenges. So the first thing is that our current reductions that we've taken have been approximately $8 million. And we've done that through approximately 90 FTE positions across the district through attrition. It equates to about $4.5 million. Those 90 positions are positions where people had left, and we did not replace those individuals who had left. So we were able to make that 90 through the attrition. The second area is our MSOC reductions. So we reduced those a bit further by about $3.5 million, and those are continuing to be areas that we have to refine as we go through, as we try and allocate resources as needed. We did some controls of salary costs. We had no step increases for our non-represented central office staff. There were salary reductions via furlough days for central office administrators ranging from 1.15% to 1.92%. We've restricted the travel, and as you heard from our human resources team about some of the changes that have impacted their work, and we have done significant realignment of our professional development programs as well. We continue to review and update our revenues, and as we work towards our revised budget, we'll have the numbers from the F-196 that will give us our basis. We'll have updated enrollment numbers that were estimates in the original first budget that we presented back in August, and we'll have refined numbers as well from our federal programs that were estimates back at that time. We'll have actuals that we will be utilizing for that. So we'll have a much more concise, accurate revenues and refined expenditures as we continue forward. So we're here to answer questions or listen to comments that you may have.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
Sorry. I had a question on the numbers, so back on slide 9. As far as for the upcoming 18-19 and 19-20, we're projecting an increase of students of about, rough math, 300. And I'm just wondering, it seems like in past years we've been rather flat on enrollment, and it looks like we're predicting an increase. And I'm just wondering where.
So we're seeing an increase based upon our kindergarten enrollment that we have right now is showing us a slight increase there. Part of the factors that we also look at is our growth between grade levels. And so at the elementary level, we're experiencing greater growth than we are at the mid-level. And we see a slight decline at the high school level. And so we're working on looking at those numbers in their entirety. So yes, over that period of time there, about a 350 student increase, which is slightly more than 1% annually, or 0.5% annually, about 1% total over that period of time.
Okay.
And another thing too is there's about between Kent and Covington and unincorporated King County, there's about 700 new housing units going in.
That's what I was going to ask.
So and we get about half a kid per house, so that's about 350 kids.
And how, can I jump in on that? Because that was part of the question I was going to formulate here. How soon do we start looking at how many houses are going to be in this development, how much do they cost, so that we know what kind of?
We get information all that. As soon as the city passes on something, we get the information.
Okay.
I just got one from Covington. There's 20 houses going in this this Pottle Inn, I'm going, I don't know how they're putting 20 houses in there, but there's 20 houses are going in there, yeah. So we get that information all the time we get it from Kent and Covington. We don't get it from King County as much.
So do you have to go after King County just to, I mean, when you see dirt being moved, you
Yeah.
you start asking questions?
That's when you start asking questions, yes.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So, and I know that I know this, but I just can't figure it out tonight. Can you go over staff mix factor for me again, exactly what that is?
Sure. The staff mix factor is based upon the experience level of our staff and the credits that they've earned, degrees that they've earned. And so that generates a 1.0 in that mix factor is a beginning teacher at the first step in the salary schedule. And then there's factors based upon the number of staff in each of the different cells that generate that staff mix factor.
Okay.
It goes from 1.0 to 1.88, and there's like 5 decimal points after that. And so it's the average of, and each cell has its own factor, and so it's the average of where the teachers are. And 1.49 is about a master's in 13 years, I think, 12 or 13.
Okay.
Yeah, would you be able to explain the MSOC reductions of $3.5 million? Where do we see the biggest cut in the MSOC?
Where do we see the biggest cuts in the MSOCs?
MSOCs and also contract services. Where are we seeing the biggest reduction?
So those reductions have occurred in across the board in many different areas. And so part of where we're seeing the bigger reductions that are visible of things that you see are going to be in the areas of central support. That's where a lot of that has taken place with the MSOC reductions in our maintenance, in our curricular areas, in professional development have been areas where those MSOC reductions have had the bigger hits that are visible with things that we've done and changed this year.
Okay, I was asking because you had separated out MSOC reductions and realignment of professional development. So I was trying to understand what in professional development is getting cut versus travel versus MSOC.
So there are many elements inside of professional development, from individuals that we contract with to bring in and provide those services to the extra time that is paid to our staff to participate in those, to materials that are purchased for both classroom and individual teacher materials that are necessary to implement the curriculum or the program that's being done. So they actually fall in salary inside of contract services for the actual individuals that are brought in, and also in supply dollars that are in that MSOC piece for the materials that are necessary.
Okay. Okay, I'll have more questions later, but
Okay.
is there anybody?
Great. I have one other. So on contract services, so since that was a large portion of what we were over last year, what are we doing to address keeping tighter controls on that? I know that some of that has to do with our students that come and different contracts that we have to have that way. But what are we doing specifically in regards to contract services and budgeting?
So as we look at all of the areas inside of contract services, it's a big number that we have within the budgets, from utilities to the individuals I was talking about come in and do presentations, to services, as you just mentioned, in regards to providing support for our students. And so as we look at those, the way that we've got to contain those costs and to budget more accurately is to be sure that we're doing individual reviews at this time of year about what the actual services are that we are providing, and that as we go through the year and maybe a new student moves in that needs specialized services, that we make sure there is capacity and calculations have taken place inside of those particular budget areas.
So I can ask one more on that one. So on the contract services, at some point, would it be possible to find out what percentage of those are actual, like, hard-to-fill positions that we
Right.
might have had, and to be able to maybe look at, is there something that we can do more creatively in recruitment to be able to help reduce down that? Because in some ways, it would be, at least in my mind, if we could spend a little bit more in that area to actually reduce that down, because it does cost us more to contract out positions than it does to actually hire positions.
Right, exactly. So as you heard our human resources team talk about some of the recruitment things in the hard-to-fill areas, that is definitely on their radar, and Mr. Sander and his team are also very concerned in regards to being sure that we get our staff, more of our staff hired into those positions than we do from the outside contracted services that we have to do right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, team.
All right. I believe Haley Soot would like to speak regarding the finances. Haley, is that correct? Okay, okay, please. Come to the podium to my right.
Got to move it out, hang on.
Thank you. Just one real quick question. So I'm from Kentwood High School. I'm currently a senior. So we were just thinking, with the several supply and salary shortages, why are we not allowed to encourage to do paper drives or fundraise to help support and allow our schools to keep functioning?
Okay. Haley, I should have mentioned this earlier, but this comment part is where we, as a board, listen to what the public has to say, and we will speak with staff to provide some answers for you, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
I did not know that. So.
Do you have any other questions?
Oh,
we can get
that's it.
back to you. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 5.0, Board of Directors discussion and approval, resolution number 1526, certification of special levies. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve resolution number 1526, certification of special levies.
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Are there any questions or discussions? Okay, hearing none.
Oops, hang on. I was just inhaling.
Okay.
I was just wondering about the amount. Is that the total amount that can be asked by the state legislature has limited us?
So the amounts that we have listed there are in the Educational Programs and Operations Levy is the amount that we're eligible for via the OSPI standards, and also what has been approved as a maximum by our voters. The debt service fund is the dollar amount that is required to pay off our bond issues, and so those were preset as part of the bond issue structures before. And then the last area of our capital projects fund levy, which is our technology levy, the last year of that is at $8 million, which was again approved by the voters. Again, these, I'll take a point here to also mention that we do have a levy coming up in 2018 that will need to replace these that are on here as well that are voter approved.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes. Resolution 5.02, resolution number 1527, out of endorsement waivers. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve resolution number 1527, out of endorsement waivers.
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion passes. Okay, 6.0 consent agenda. I will ask the board if you would like to pull an agenda item for discussion.
I have none.
None? Okay. I have one, 6.04. Okay, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda item, consent agenda minus 6.04.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. All right, 6.04.
I'm going to ask John Sander to come for the podium and respond to any questions you have.
Yes, thank you. So I wanted to, because we talk quite a bit about contracts during our budgets, every year we come across the same contracts. And I don't know how it's working with special education. I suspect it's very tough to do a competitive bid and find the appropriate vendor. So I guess, in the future, I would like to, given the amount of money we're spending, I'd like to see, I'd like to have them present what is happening in our schools, what they're finding. I'd also like to hear from our teachers and our students, how the work is going. Because I feel year after year, we're approving these large budgets, but we don't have a sense of, what the work is. Is it producing results? I don't know. So we're not at a stage where we can do a program review, so I'd like to just hear from our teachers in our buildings, I guess, students, how things are going.
Great. I would welcome that opportunity to present about our programs and the things that are happening and provide a greater understanding and knowledge behind these contracts and the services that are being provided. So I'll work with our Chief Ed and Dr. Watts and see if we can get that scheduled.
Mm-hmm. And do they give any sort of assessment or feedback at the end of the year? How is that communication with our vendors?
From these vendors?
Yes.
So most of these vendors will be providing services to individual students. And so we evaluate their program through progress monitoring and progress on their IEP goals and all of kind of those standard pieces that we're looking at. Really, our focus within Inclusive Ed is through these contracts is to build capacity within our staff. And so many of these are side-by-side services where we're learning from these specialized services that are coming in with the hope of increasing our capacity and skill to be able to deliver those more specialized services and reduce our reliance on out-of-district or out-of-contractor services.
Okay.
John, I want to ask, and we've had conversations about this on more than a few occasions, not only from a budgetary restraint standpoint, but more importantly from a student services. How are we addressing the needs of our children? So you've had discussions with other neighboring school districts outside of our region. Are there disruptions? And what I mean by that, are there innovative practices or ordinary practices that are occurring in extraordinary fashion that we're seeing improved results from services that might be rendered from others besides contract service employees?
Certainly, we're always looking. We're not beyond stealing from others of what's working well and looking at their results. We have areas that we're particularly focused on in terms of our systems growth of our post-school outcomes, our disproportionality, our least restrictive environment settings, and tracking that data as we're looking to move that forward. We're a part of a number of both regional and national organizations where we learned from other large urban school districts and what they're doing around inclusive practices and ways that we can maximize those outcomes for our students. One of our core beliefs is equity for our kids is about outcome, not just opportunity. And so for our students to be on, have equitable outcomes, they need to be on a more typical trajectory and have access to core content and curriculum and have those inclusive experiences. And so we're always looking to others of what they're doing and the results that they're having. So really both research and effective practices, we're always looking at those pieces.
Okay. Thank you so much, John. All right, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve 6.04.
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor say yes. Aye.
Aye, yes, aye, yes.
All those aye. All those opposed say no. Okay, motion passes. Right, now we're on to 7.0 communication from the audience. And I have one card from Alex Malloy. And again, as a reminder, we as a board will be listening to what you have to say. Okay, all right. We won't be responding. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alex Malloy. I'm a senior at Kent High School. I wanted to bring up the issue of high school starting so early when there is an abundance of research on the effects of sleep and circadian rhythms and what happens across multiple areas of health when sleep systems go wrong. Studies have shown that puberty hormones push back circadian rhythms by about 2 hours for teenagers. Russell G. Foster, PhD, a world-renowned professor of circadian neuroscience, has studied the lack of sleep and its effects on the mind. When people don't get enough sleep, less than 8 to 10 hours for teenagers, many problems can arise, including loss of attention, failure to process information, impulsivity and loss of empathy, increased risk to cancer and heart disease, mood instability, and anxiety. Increasing research has shown that students who begin the school day earlier than 8:30 a.m. don't get 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. Other school districts around the country, such as Bellingham School District in Washington, Mojave High School in Nevada, and schools in Charlottesville, Virginia, have been setting school start times later and seeing improvements in alertness and preparedness. With all these negative effects regarding lack of sleep and positive results with later school start times for teenagers, has the Kent School District considered the option to move school times for teenagers later? How does this fit into your plan to successfully prepare all Kent School District students for the future?
Thank you, Alex. Right. Okay, 7.02 legislative update is here, but
Og does not.
Og does not here.
So
So we don't have a legislative update, but we'll move on to superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Venkatasalam, members of the board, Ms. Howley, staff, community, friends. Tonight we celebrate. We celebrate our amazing principals, our nutrition services staff, our bus drivers, otherwise known as directors of first impressions, our physical therapists, our members of the Filipino American community. We are also reminded of the complexities of a large school district, a K-12 organization that must maintain school facilities, serve children healthy and delicious meals, care for them when they're hurt or sick or experiencing trauma, support their many talents, skills, and abilities through the arts, science, athletics, civic engagement opportunities. And oh, by the way, we must all do all of this and more while keeping our focus on the core business of teaching and learning with an emphasis on learning. And those educators, by definition, must respond to the varying needs of children and adults. We must engage our community in such a way that they choose. They choose to stay in our Kent School District. Our new families choose to come to Kent School District. And we need our students to be so well prepared for their futures, as we heard earlier this evening, that they have access to as many options and choices that will lead each and every student to that success that we claim is our mission, the reason why we exist. I'm not here right now. Message. You see, we want families to choose Kent School District. And in the end, we want Kent School District to be just that, a school district of choice for our teachers, our families, our support staff, our community stakeholders. I stand ready to serve alongside our talented leaders to do just that. That concludes my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Watts.
I don't have a whole lot. I, again, am enmeshed in mentoring with my 3 students, one who has graduated from Kent and is now in her second year at Highline College. And we're looking at where to go next. University of Washington Tacoma, I think, is where she's going to choose to go. So I'm really excited about that. And my high school student is looking at how to recover credits as fast as she can. And so that we're doing some studying there on her options. And my elementary school mentee is progressing nicely with thinking about strategies and options and looking at those kinds of things and enjoying school. I have a feeling she's enjoying school this year better than she did in the past. I have been involved in this last year on the, I'll say PBIS, but it's now being called the multi-tiered service. What's the other S, Randy? System/B, behavior. I almost had it. I was practicing it on the way over. And I've been involved in the planning for that, and I'm impressed that we're moving forward with going district-wide with it and looking at the different schools and where they are. They're at different levels, and we're going to address each school and where they are, and not just blanketly everybody starting here. So stay tuned. I think it's going to be great.
So I was very excited. I got to start with my mentee again this year down at Kent Elementary. So I've been there for a couple of weeks now, and it was very exciting to see the growth that he's made over the year, and we've been practicing some of our math as we're playing different games, which has been very fun to watch and see. So if you haven't had an opportunity to be a mentor, we've got so many kiddos that could use a mentor, so please take that opportunity and tell your neighbors and friends, because we sure could use more mentors in our district. But it's exciting to see what's happening in our schools, so I appreciate that opportunity.
Okay. All right. First, I just wanted to give an update on our review of applications for the board vacancy. We do have 3 candidates we're interviewing. It'll be an open public meeting on the 18th, next Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. And on the following Wednesday, the candidate who will be the new board member will take their seat at the following Wednesday on the 25th. And I just wanted to, I didn't do much this last few weeks, but I wanted to thank Dee Clem and Kent Community Foundation for involving me with the Kent Has Talent. We had a lot of students and teachers perform, and I have always thought about why can't we do a KSD talent show, because that was just incredible what happened there. So I just appreciate how our community comes together to fundraise. We have this Friday morning is our Kent Food Bank fundraiser, and thank you so much for all the staff members who've signed up, and looking forward to seeing you all there Friday morning. Okay, with that, I think we are adjourned, and have a great evening, everyone.